Audience analysis and the importance of measurement. The question is, how do we know that we have the right audience or the right document, presentation, or training session for a specific audience? It is easy in theory to answer this question, but not so easy in practice. The simple answer is we measure it. But what do we measure? What is it that we are trying to measure? My answer is we measure whether the goal is achieved. But this begs the question again. What is the goal of any document, presentation, or training? How do we know something is good? The answer is, the goal is this: the audience should display a measurable and positive difference in behavior. So, unless we change the behavior in a positive direction, and unless we can measure it, we can never say whether our audience goal is achieved or not. For example, imagine our presentation is a stand-up comedy. The behavior here is laughter. Is the audience openly laughing? That's how we define it. Measurement: can you measure how many people are laughing? Probably you can. Even perhaps how hard they are laughing. We can have a microphone and have audio measurements in terms of decibels. Or perhaps number of dollars advertisers are spending on the show. That can be a measurement too. So positive difference is, are they laughing more at the end of the show? Or do the advertisers spending more? Yet there's a question here, and actually more than one. One of those questions is, if the audience is not laughing out loud, but applauding politely and buying every one of the expensive tickets, is the show a success? Or if we have only half of the room is sold, but people are laughing like crazy, is the show appropriate for its intended audience or not? So the point is, it's not always easy to decide. It just depends on how you measure the audience satisfaction and whether the audience goal is reached or not. A second example is on pilot safety training, a civil aviation example. Behavior is flying airplanes. Is the audience our pilots flying airplanes? Yes, they are. Measurement: hours of flight is a common measurement in aviation. The positive difference: are there fewer accidents per month or per annual accumulated hours of flight, or perhaps fewer fatalities? How are we going to measure the positive difference in pilot safety training? So the question is, if as a result of this training the pilots are receiving higher certification grades, let's say, than ever, but the number of crashes with no fatalities, or perhaps with fatalities, are increasing, is the training program a success? Is the training appropriate for its intended audience or not? So it may take some consideration to decide whether this training was a success or not. A third example is from documentation. Imagine we are writing home alarm system installation guides. The behavior is alarm system installation, installing residential alarm systems. Measurement is how many alarm systems are installed per month, or how many complaints received per month after installation. The positive difference we are after is, do we have fewer complaints or calls to the technical service center per month thanks to our great document? Fewer complaints, was that the goal? Or the higher number of systems installed regardless of the number of complaints? So here the question is, if as a result of the installation guide, the installers are installing 15% fewer systems per month, but despite the number of fewer systems, there's a 15% drop in the number of calls to the customer service department. Or, as a result of the installation guide, the installers are installing 15% more systems per month, but there's also a 15% increase in the number of calls to the customer service department. Now, is the document a success? Is the document appropriate for its intended audience, the installers, or not? It all depends on the questions we ask, on how we measure whether this document has reached its goal or not. It may not be as straightforward a process as it sounds like in theory. So in theory, summing it up, you can tell exactly whether a presentation, document, or training program is the right one for its audience by measuring the positive difference in audience behavior. But in practice, it's not always easy to measure, as I tried to explain by these 3 examples. It's not always easy to measure whether the intended goal is reached and if the information product in question was the right one for its intended audience. It's kind of problematic. To sum up again, sometimes it may come to a managerial decision to determine whether the information product is satisfactory in terms of matching the needs and requirements of its audience. Because at the end of the day, whether it's a writer, client, management, somebody has to decide and say, this product is appropriate for this audience or not. See you in the next lesson.